On a warm afternoon washed in golden sunlight, when the streets seemed to glow as if hope itself floated in the air, a small bakery on Riverside Avenue buzzed quietly with comfort. The scent of fresh bread drifted through the doorway, mixed with sugar, butter, and the promise of simple happiness. Inside, customers chatted softly, unaware that just beyond the glass door stood a silent storm of desperation. A frail woman named Elena stepped inside, her movements hesitant, her clothes dusted with the marks of a hard life. Every line on her face told a story of worry she hadn't slept through. Beside her stood her little daughter, Lily, clutching her mother's hand tightly. Though her body was tired, her eyes still carried a fragile spark of hope that hadn't yet been extinguished. Elena paused just inside the entrance, steadying herself. She hadn't eaten since the morning before. Lily's last meal had been half an apple, carefully split between them so her child could have the larger portion. Elena wasn't there to buy pastries or cake. She hadn't come with money. She had come with humility, hunger, and a request that felt heavier than her own pride. If you believe kindness still has a place in this world, if you believe one compassionate moment can change a life, please take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Warriors. Your support helps us share stories that remind humanity who we truly are. Inside the bakery, everything felt painfully out of reach. Golden loaves stacked in perfect rows. Cakes decorated like treasures behind glass. Pastries glistened under warm lights. Elena lowered her eyes, afraid that even looking too long would remind her of everything she couldn't give her child. Lily tightened her grip on her sleeve, her small fingers trembling. With slow steps, Elena approached the counter. The polished floor felt too clean for shoes worn thin by survival. The employees looked up, their polite smiles faltering as they sensed what was coming. Her voice shook as she spoke. She asked if there was any expired cake, something meant for the trash at the end of the day, anything she could give her daughter. Lily hadn't tasted cake in months. She didn't ask for much, just what others no longer wanted. What Elena didn't realize was that someone else had been listening. A tall man stood near the pastry case, dressed neatly in a simple gray suit. His name was Jonathan Hale, one of the city's most successful entrepreneurs. That afternoon, he wasn't there for meetings or deals. He had slipped into the bakery seeking quiet, craving the small routines life had taken from him. He planned to order a slice of blueberry pie, but instead, life placed something else in front of him. As Elena spoke, Jonathan felt a tightening in his chest he hadn't felt in years. People believed money made hearts cold, but his heart had frozen long before wealth ever touched it. Years ago, he lost his wife and young son in a tragic accident. Since then, he had buried his emotions beneath schedules, success, and silence. Yet the sound of a mother begging for scraps cracked something open. The staff exchanged uncomfortable glances. They wanted to help, but store policy forbade giving food away before closing. The silence stretched painfully. Elena's face flushed with shame. She considered turning around, pretending she'd never asked. But hunger has a way of chaining people to hope. Lily tugged gently at her mother's sleeve, her eyes drifting toward a strawberry-topped cake behind the glass. She didn't ask. Children like her learned early which dreams were allowed, and which ones weren't. Jonathan noticed everything. The child hiding behind her mother. The way Elena tried to stand tall beneath invisible weight. In Lily's quiet longing, Jonathan saw echoes of the child he had lost. This wasn't a pity. It wasn't charity. It was recognition. Without a word, Jonathan stepped forward. He didn't announce himself. He didn't display wealth. He simply asked the cashier to pack the freshest cake in the display, a large vanilla sponge layered with cream and bright berries. Then he asked for warm meals, pastries, sandwiches, anything that could bring strength back into hungry eyes. Elena watched, confused. When Jonathan turned toward her, she braced herself for judgment. Instead, he placed the bag gently on the counter and nodded for it to be handed to her. He thanked the staff, wished them a peaceful afternoon, and stepped back, making kindness feel ordinary, not performative. He didn't wait for applause. He didn't wait for gratitude. When Elena reached for the bag, her hands trembled. Her composure collapsed as months of fear finally escaped in quiet sobs. Lily's face lit up, not with greed, but with relief. The employees softened instantly, ashamed of their earlier hesitation. Kindness had entered the bakery quietly, and everyone felt it. Jonathan turned to leave, but Elena called out, her voice barely more than a whisper of gratitude. He turned back and smiled. A real smile, one that reached old memories instead of reopening wounds. No names were exchanged. No conditions were given. Just humanity. Outside, the sunlight felt warmer. The world gentler. Jonathan realized that healing doesn't always come from being healed, but from helping someone else breathe again. On a small bench nearby, Elena and Lily shared cake, like people who had finally been seen. And Jonathan understood something powerful. Sometimes it isn't money that changes lives. It's compassion delivered at exactly the right moment. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share. And subscribe to Kindness Warriors so we can keep spreading stories that remind us who we are. Before you go, tell us in the comments. Do you believe a small act of kindness can change someone's entire life? And with that, this story ends on a warm afternoon, where a simple question about discarded cake becomes a moment of hope, healing, and proof that humanity still shines where no one expects it.